who were forced into underground rings? What was life like? My family lived by one rule. You pay what you owe, no matter the cost. So when I was 19 and found out my father had borrowed $200,000 from the Petrov family, I knew our lives were over. My father sat at the kitchen table with his head in his hands while my mother paced and chain smoked. The deadline was 3 days away, and we had nothing. Then Maxim Petrov himself showed up at our door with his son Victor. Maxim looked at me the way you'd examine breeding stock before buying it. He turned to my father and said, "Your debt disappears tonight if she joins our program." My father didn't even look at me before agreeing. My mother just lit another cigarette and stared at the wall. The examination happened in Maxim's clinic. No comfort, no explanations, just tests to run and men with guns watching. Victor was 28 and had calculating eyes. After the procedures, he leaned close and whispered, "You're a vessel now. Nothing more. Remember that." The treatment started that first night. He showed me a room in the compound with medical monitors and no privacy. He said that's where I'd live if I resisted the hormone injections. He tracked my cycles, body temperature, everything. If I missed a vitamin or ate something not approved, he'd withhold food for days. He'd remind me what his family did to girls who miscarried, how they'd harvest what they could and dump the rest. He controlled every aspect of my health. Weekly blood draws, daily injections, constant ultrasounds. He scheduled my meals, my sleep, my exercise, all optimized for production. He chose which men's samples to use based on client orders. Wealthy couples who couldn't conceive, sure, but also stranger requests I tried not to think about. Every week we had medical reviews at Maxim's facility. I had to lie still while doctors examined me like livestock. They discussed my hormone levels, egg quality, uterine lining thickness. Victor would adjust my medications if my body wasn't responding fast enough. His mother would pat my swollen belly and say things like, "Such a good producer, this one." My parents called once a month to make sure I was fulfilling the contract. They never asked if I was healthy or safe, just reminded me that my father's kidneys depended on my cooperation. My younger sister wasn't allowed to visit because they didn't want her getting ideas. The breaking point came after my third pregnancy. Victor brought in a couple to inspect the merchandise while I was 7 months along. They pressed their hands on my stomach, discussed the baby like ordering from a menu. When I flinched away, Victor grabbed my wrist hard enough to bruise. The woman laughed and said, "Is this the debt payment? She doesn't even have good genetics." That night, while they celebrated another successful delivery, I sat in the recovery room and realized I'd rather die trying to escape than carry another stranger's child. I started planning carefully. I saved the prenatal vitamins they gave me, learned which combinations could induce labor. I memorized the compound's routines, guard rotations, delivery schedules. I smiled more, acted grateful, made Victor believe I was finally broken. It took 6 months and another pregnancy to find my chance. I studied which clients never asked questions, which babies went to real families versus something darker. I practiced forging medical records during ultrasounds. "You belong to us," Victor had said once. "There's nowhere you can run while carrying our property." The night I ran, I induced labor 3 weeks early during a shift change. While they scrambled to save their investment, I slipped out during the chaos. I'd been diluting my tracking medications for weeks, just enough to confuse their systems without harming the baby. At the bus station, I collapsed from blood loss but kept moving. For 48 hours, I bled through stolen pads, certain every stop would bring their recovery team. I gave birth in a monastery that didn't ask questions, left the baby with the nuns who promised to find him a real home. In a truck stop bathroom, I bound my chest to stop the milk, dyed my hair, practiced walking without the pregnant waddle I'd had for 3 years. I burned my medical bracelet and bought clothes that hid my still swollen body. By the time I reached my destination, I looked nothing like the breeder who'd fled. I ended up in a small desert town where I got a job cleaning motel rooms under a fake name. For 2 years, I jumped at every pregnant woman, every medical van. I moved constantly, never made friends, worked jobs that paid cash. I learned to spot their recruiters, vary my routes, and keep emergency contraception stocked. One day, I saw my father's obituary online. Local man dies during kidney transplant. I knew it wasn't accidental. My mother and sister vanished after that. No obituaries, no missing persons reports, just gone. The Petrovs had collected their debt after all, just not from me. Now I'm 32 and work at a women's health clinic in a city far from where I started. I help women escape because I know how to do it right. But last week, something strange happened. A teenager came in for a pregnancy test, and I recognized her face from my own mirror. She had my eyes, my cheekbones, the birthmark I'd hidden with makeup. When I pulled her file, her birth date matched my first forced pregnancy. She looked at me, confused by my staring, and asked, "Is something wrong?" My adoptive mom said I should come here if I ever needed help. And I realized the Petrovs hadn't been selling all those babies to desperate couples. They'd been keeping some. Full story on channel linked below.